What's up, everybody? Round 2 for the Get Back Guys podcast. For this episode, I will be your host, and I'm Nick. We've also got 2 special guests, but we'll introduce the other 2 hosts first.
Alex, back at it. Eagles, Heat, let's go.
I'm Kyle. I just found out I was a hockey fan as of yesterday. Go Kraken. Huh? How about them boys, huh?
And then we've got 2 of our longtime friends who we've been playing fantasy football for years. So I guess, Caleb, why don't you introduce yourself first?
Hi, I'm Caleb. I 3-time My GM of the Year award winner in my 2K solo career. So that's kind of what gives me the qualification to be here.
My God. What about the other one?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Zach. I'm pretty much a fan of everything Chicago sports, and I don't think that they want me talking about my fantasy football credentials.
It's true.
And here we go. Right out of the gate.
It's true. He's dominated us in fantasy, and I hate to admit it.
And we'll get into
But it's
that
true.
more as these 2 are going to be regulars, hopefully pop in and out constantly for this new show we've got going for the Get Back Guys. And hopefully we'll do some fantasy stuff when football starts up, and we'll start putting our frustrations out onto the internet.
Exactly. So
all right.
I'm thinking the topic.
I come out of retirement to get back in this year. That is
True.
Fair enough.
Very true. So the topics for the podcast today, we're going to focus more on NBA because NBA is starting next week, and I cannot wait. So we'll be focusing more on NBA today. If we get through some topics, we might talk a little NFL to wrap things up. But yeah, so I'm going to just lead it in with kind of the big question of, with the NBA, obviously the playoffs are going to be coming up pretty quick here. Who are your favorites to win the championship? So your number one and maybe a couple teams that you think are contending, because let's be real, 3 teams, maybe at most 4 teams every year are actually in contention. So we can start it off with Alex since he's pointing away. Who do you think are the favorites?
Yeah, for those of you listening on Apple or Spotify, I got a big whiteboard here in the back. Drew out a little Heat. Got a scoreboard. Heat 200. Everyone else in the league 0. Heat winning the whole thing. All right. Well, in all seriousness,
No.
I actually do think the Heat have a decent chance. I think we were actually pretty dang good before everything happened. I think they've got a real shot to do something. I think they play really well, and our young guys are elite. But I mean, I'm going with Bron. I'm going to start off with the Lakers because it's Bron, and the Warriors are no more. They're not even around for this bubble party we got going on. To get them out of here, don't need him. Kevin Durant, not in the bubble. Don't need these former champs. It's LeBron, and he's coming back for his ring. I know they've got injuries, but I'm telling you, LeBron is got 2 months off, and he's going to be nonstop, and he's going to go crazy. Anthony Davis. They're coming. If it's not my boys in South Beach, I think it's gonna end up being the Lakers. I think they're the top contender.
Well, why don't we switch it up, and Zach, why don't you take it off?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to go with the other team from LA, actually. I think that the Clippers were the favorite heading into the season for a lot of people. They have the reigning MVP of the last year's finals in Kawhi Leonard. Paul George should be back and fully healthy after a few months of rest. They have a lot deeper roster than the Lakers do, and I really just think that they're sort of built to be the anti-Lakers in this tournament. They play a lot better defense. You know, Bron, as he's getting on in his years, isn't playing the same sort of defense that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are. So I just think when you sort of put the teams together based purely on matchups with both coming on full 4 months of rest, the Clippers have the advantage in just about every category. They have the star power. They have the depth. They have the rest. I think the Clippers are the clear favorite coming out of the West, and they're my pick to go all the way.
And they play first on Thursday, right? They're one of the 4 teams. Those 2 play each other. So, that'll tell you right there how this is going to go. Depending on how that game goes, will give a lot of insight.
Speaking of Bron going up there in age, have you guys seen that new beard with the The gray
I
on
love
the
it.
side.
I love
I
it.
love
Yeah.
it. He's
It makes me
he's
more
coming.
intimidated by him, to be honest.
English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
He's
that's
old
what
man
everyone's kind of
Logan.
said.
That's what he
Yeah,
is.
he's scary.
Yeah.
Who do you think, Caleb?
Man, so I think the safe bet probably is the Clippers. I like just checking Vegas betting odds, and right now the Lakers are number one. They have according to Vegas, they're the team to beat. But to me, I don't know. I could go either way with it because the Lakers, I don't like Avery Bradley being out and Rajon being hurt. Even though they're role players, I don't like that. I think they've got some pretty big holes. But on the flip side, I don't see anyone on the Clippers who can defend Anthony Davis. So I don't know. I think those two are probably the easiest safe bets to win the whole thing. I don't know who wins the whole thing, to be honest. It's probably one of those two. I'm gonna have to see some games first to really decide that, though. If you held a gun to my head, though, and I had to say one or the other for all the marbles, I'm probably going Lakers.
South Beach.
Yeah. All right. Kyle, who do you think?
Actually, I'm kind of right there with you guys. I think it's Lakers or Clippers. Just from the very little research that I've done, because I haven't followed basketball all that close. But just from what I've seen, it's Lakers or Clippers. I personally think that the Lakers roster is pretty deep, at least from what I'm seeing, even though Rondo is out as well as Bradley. Avery Bradley's out, I believe, as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys are forgetting Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma. Watch out.
Yeah.
Those guys are awesome.
We got J.R. Smith. The gang's back together, man.
Yeah.
Don't forget
Exactly.
Dwight Howard unmasked is going to be coming in for the Lakers.
Yeah. But
Oh,
so,
Dwight, stop talking.
So yeah, my bias is Lakers, but I see it the same way. It's just a showdown between the LA teams to see who takes it. I think it could get pretty close as well between those two. I don't see anyone running away with it.
Yeah, so I think it's a two-headed race, but I'm a little bit different than everyone. I think it's Lakers-Bucks are the two clear favorites. The Bucks were the best team in the NBA, and they by far really throughout the year, except the Lakers were coming up right at the end when they had the two big wins against the Bucks and the Clippers. I would have been more confident in the Lakers before the Bradley injury. I think the Rondo injury doesn't really matter at all. I think him and Caruso, or even if not Caruso, is better
It probably
right now.
matters because Bradley's out, but that's a good point.
But Bradley's a big deal for their wing defense for sure. But my boy Danny Green, don't you forget him. But the Bucks, I think they're going to have, I think the East, they're going to cruise through the East. There's not a superstar that can stand up to Giannis. Like Tatum, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid, and Pascal Siakam. They're all great. They're all not quite on the level of Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, right? Like, and even James Harden, right? Like the Rockets, I think, have like a 0.01% chance. I think they would be 4. And I think Clippers are a step behind the Lakers and Bucks. But I actually think in the matchup between the Lakers and Clippers, I think Lou Williams is actually going to be a big weakness. LeBron's been known. He attacked Steph Curry, and those Warriors teams besides 2015 were more talented than the Cavs teams. And for him to even kind of put up a challenge, I think he's going to actually be a weakness. And also, I have no confidence in Paul George in the playoffs. He hasn't won a playoff series since 2014, so that's a different Paul George before his leg injury.
And has Anthony Davis ever won a playoff series?
So
I mean,
Anthony Davis. So
is that
last
so much
2
better
years,
than Paul George?
Well, here's the difference. Paul George played 2 years with an MVP. Say what you will about Russell Westbrook. They lost to the Jazz. That's on Russ as well. That's on Paul George as well. And that's years after he's been removed from it. And then they both, the Pelicans, led by Anthony Davis, upset the Portland Trailblazers. Portland basically brought back the same team the next year, and Portland knocked out OKC. So I don't trust Paul George as much as others do. He's obviously a great player, but I think Anthony Davis is in the top 7 players of the league, and I think Paul George is in that tier behind him. But obviously the Clippers are good, and if Kawhi does, really step up and LeBron doesn't dominate like he has the last time he was in the postseason, obviously it's going to be a tough match. But I wouldn't count out the Bucks, because when you get to a 7-game series and they're feeling good and Giannis is just so dominant. Also, I think depending on who the Bucks play in the finals could matter. I actually think the Clippers are a better matchup against the Bucks, and so I think if the Clippers beat the Lakers, they have a better chance to win against the Bucks than the other way around. But I would say Bucks Lakers is kind of a toss up between those two.
That's for my third choice, so I get it.
Yeah.
Paul George, Pacers, 2012-14, baby. Yeah.
That's a different guy, though.
They took LeBron
That's a
and
different
the
guy.
Heat to the brink.
Yeah, that's a
and-
different guy. That was 6 years ago.
But that was with Roy Hibbert. Now he has Kawhi Leonard.
Well,
Hey, don't
people
you
like
disrespect Roy Hibbert?
Roy Hibbert
My
was good
goodness.
back then.
What's wrong with you? You ever
But,
disrespect Roy
that was
Hibbert like that?
I'm not, but that's a different guy. That's we all say that Gordon Hayward is a completely different guy after his leg injury. Paul George had a leg injury, and he's not been the same postseason presence kind of a guy. Maybe he proves me wrong this year. He's obviously a great player. I don't want to discredit him. He's an all-star caliber player. He's not a superstar, though. Anthony Davis is a superstar. And but Anthony Davis needs to play elite if they're going to win, because they are shorthanded. But I also think the Bucks, just because Giannis he's terrifying.
It is going to be interesting too, because they've had 2 months off. We've never seen this before. You've never just suddenly had 2 months of rest before you get a few.
Yeah.
These games to see these final seeds are just going to be more scrimmage games. Is really what they're going to be before it comes down to it. And everybody wants to go home and they want to win. So it's going to be ground and pound in there, and I'm excited for sports.
Yeah. So with that on the break, who do you guys think gained the most with the break, and who do you think lost the most with the break? And anyone can go.
Oh, the Nets are going to be amazing. I think the Nets are going to blow everyone out. No, I'd be shocked if the Nets or the Wizards won more than a game apiece. They're just they
don't have anybody.
Do they play each other? 9
points or something dumb. Oh, they do play each other, though. So, yeah, there might be one win between them.
Yeah.
Well, one of them's got to win, but
those two lost.
With those two, you don't know.
I think they definitely lost the most, because any team, especially the Nets, is a bummer, because there was a week where it was like maybe Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving will come back, and all of a sudden we'll be a contender.
Yeah.
And then they also lost. What, did they also lose LeVert, or was it Dinwiddie?
He's back.
Okay. But they're not a contender, really. And I think the Spurs as well, losing LaMarcus Aldridge, really any hope they had, unless, playoff DeMar that's never existed is born, they probably aren't going to be making it. But for me, I think the teams that gained the most, I think the Pelicans did, just with Zion being healthier, gives them an extra boost. I mean, Memphis still, I think, is going to be awesome. Another team that I think out of the contenders, I think the Lakers are kind of like mid, because they lost Avery Bradley, which I think is going to matter. But giving LeBron rest could pay dividends for them, just because we're all concerned about his age. Another team that has a player that's notorious for seeming like he's tired in the playoffs, Caleb's favorite player in the NBA, James Harden. I think him and Russell Westbrook, their style of basketball, because James Harden's usage is so high in the regular season, and Russ is going 1,000%. There's still a long shot to even make it to the Western Conference Finals, but they might have gotten a boost from giving those two guys rest, because if Harden's on, they're going to be a tough team to beat. And so I think that could help the Rockets. So I think that them and the Pelicans are actually two of the teams that might have benefited the most. But I also don't think I don't think it's swaying the needle that far for any team, except like the Wizards losing Beal. Like, that's just you're not going to make the playoffs. So what are you guys' thoughts?
I have one team that I think really, even more than those two, as this alarm's going off, my apologies. But and now I lost it. Oh, Portland Trail Blazers getting
that's a good point.
Nurkic back. I've always loved that guy, and I watched a little bit of their scrimmage. and they didn't win. But I think that team is low-key kind of scary. I don't think you want to – I would rather play New Orleans with their current roster than I would the Trailblazers. So I wouldn't have said that before the break. So I'll go with them as like the team that has the most win. By the way, plus 6,000 to make the Western make the finals. I mean, so you put $100 down, you could get 6,000 if they made the finals, and that's a lot of money.
What did they have on your team that they like?
Dame and CJ McCollum. Oh, and apparently Thin Mello, even though I don't know about that. So.
And if Whiteside ever gets back to that one decent year he had, he was blocking everything for him. You're all skipping on my boys, and it's hurting. It's hard. I can't handle it. We got the best young core in the game. Get out of here, Pelicans. There's Zion Williams. You ever heard of Tyler Hero, sir? That man's coming to save the day. Bam's a beast. I think people are sleeping on the Heat. In all reality, I really do. I think they might put up a big fight here. I think Butler's ready to go, and Goran has been low-key and very overpaid, great six-man. But it's working, and I think hopefully we didn't lose our mojo, because maybe it was just something that just happened to be going and it needed to continue rolling, and the stop is going to hurt us. But I think people are sleeping on our Heat. I think we got a lot of depth. We also got Iggy. So
Eric Spoelstra, yeah,
he's a great coach. So
I mean, I think the Heat have a decent chance to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals if they get put on the opposite side of the Bucks, because like I think the Heat are in the same realm as the Celtics and the Raptors as like really good teams, but not true contenders.
No.
I mean, I speak from experience as a Bulls fan. When Jimmy Butler's the best player on your team, there seems to be a ceiling. And
Is he,
as
though?
much as I like Jimmy Butler, I mean, I'd say right now he's definitely the most proven star on your team.
I mean, 2 All-Stars this year. Bam.
But if we're going with a team that improved a lot, I think I'm excited to see what Denver can do. They were right at the top of the conference, just a tier below some of those big-time contenders. But for a young team with a lot of rest, I think that's going to help them sort of avoid that second half slump that may have come to take them out in the playoffs. Just that youth and energy is going to be really big coming back from a break. I think it could help counterbalance some of that inexperience. And as far as a team that got worse, I think the Utah Jazz are going to have a lot of trouble, if not for the people they put on the court, the team chemistry after what Rudy Gobert did right before the break. I have a hard time imagining them putting things together without any in-person contact up until the bubble.
Yeah, and the Jazz are gonna probably play someone like the Rockets or the Nuggets. Like they're gonna play a good team. I guess maybe OKC, but they're gonna have a tough first round for sure. So I definitely see that. And with the Nuggets, like I watched it happen last year because they obviously beat the Spurs in 7 games. And I saw from the beginning of that series, like them being young and giving up, like they gave up game 1 to the Spurs, and then they shouldn't have won game 2, and they did. And like see them, it's the same roster, see them kind of get that experience. I think they could. I don't know if they're going to go super far, but I think, if they get paired up with the Rockets or even the Clippers or something along that line, they could really scare one of the better teams in the conference, or if they play the Lakers in round 2. So it's a great point.
What are you thinking, Kyle?
I don't know much in depth about like the roster constructions for most of these teams, but from what I noticed before at least the shutdown ended, I was very interested in the Pelicans. I mean, I really liked the guys like Lonzo and Josh Hart and Brandon Ingram from the Lakers before they moved over there. So I was kind of rooting for them to like do pretty well, and it seemed like they were doing pretty well. But with adding Zion in, it looked like things were finally firing on all cylinders. I mean, I'm not saying like playoff homes abound or anything, but at least there's something there to where like me being a casual basketball fan, I will want to not only watch some Laker games, but at least want to check in on the Pelicans to see what this young crop of guys can do.
What do you guys think about Toronto and Boston? Haven't heard them being thrown around, but they're in.
I mean, I think they're decent. I think
top
they,
seeds.
if they're playing really good, I mean, Toronto, I think has a great chance to maybe put a scare into, but just because all the supporting cast have obviously won a championship, so like they know what it takes, and they've overcome the Bucks before. And another team like the Sixers too, like they were obviously Jimmy Butler's gone, but they were a big buzzer beater away from maybe being on the road to the finals. So I don't think I'm not as high on the Celtics as other people. So I do think the Raptors. I think it's actually kind of Raptors Heat are the two teams behind the Bucks in the
Sneaking
East.
up.
But I know Caleb's a big Celtics guy. So what are you thinking about them?
I don't like the Kemba Walker stuff with his knee. If you have 4 months off and then you come back and it's still bugging you, something's wrong there. I don't like that. And so I may have been able to convince myself that the Celtics could come out of the East before, but if you don't, I don't know. If they don't have Kemba Walker at full strength, I don't see it. So
yeah.
Sorry.
They were so hot before the break. Does that translate over a 4-month pause in play? Because I think that's why they're being talked about as such a top tier favorite, was how they were performing before the shutdown. But I don't know that they have that track record in the playoffs right now with this core.
Well, it was really Tatum kind of coming alive and going to another level. But yeah, so I don't know. I think they're a really good team. I'm excited for them, but I don't. If I had to choose between them or the Bucks or the Raptors, like Nick was saying, I'm probably going with either the Bucks or the Raptors over the Celtics. Probably not over the 76ers, though. The 76ers need to show it to me.
I agree with that. I don't trust what's his name? Brett Brown?
Yeah.
Coach? I don't trust him. Also, I think for Tatum and Siakam are two players I definitely have an eye on watching the playoffs, because if those two teams are going to challenge the Bucks, those two players, one of them is going to have to go from like becoming like, up and coming young star to this guy's a superstar or going to be a superstar in 2 years for sure. They're going to have some great runs. And I think Siakam could actually do it. Siakam is like, every year it feels like he could be most improved player, and he's obviously won it. Has he won it twice or just once?
I'm not sure. I don't think he's won it twice.
Yeah, I think but it's like he's like been in the running because like he is so much better every year, and it feels like the same thing this year. So Kyle, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I don't have any thoughts when it comes to the Celtics. I trust Caleb's word. I do like Tatum. I do think they have like some young guys like Tatum who have like a lot of potential, but it just he's not a Tyler Hero. I don't know, but I do like the young guys. I just don't know enough to warrant thoughts on them. So I trust Caleb.
Also, I mean, is Victor Oladipo? Is he? I like heard something about him. Is he playing
yesterday?
I mean, man, I thought he was going to be in the MVP conversation kind of before he got hurt.
That injury, man.
Whatever, like a year or two ago. And so if he's like healthy, they could like surprise some teams, because 2 years ago they challenged in round one, they challenged that Cavs team that went to the finals and sent them to 7 games, because I think LeBron kind of underestimated how good Victor Oladipo was. And Sabonis is good. Miles is good. They've got to
close your eyes and squint and don't see them. Yeah, they're very good.
I mean, they're at best getting to like the second round. They're not a contender, obviously, but like I think they could kind of be considered in the same realm as those other teams if Victor Oladipo plays great. Like not the Bucks, but like maybe just a tick below, like the Raptors and Celtics. And if Victor Oladipo comes, because they've played pretty well without him. But obviously they're probably, maybe one round, right?
So my question for the group, what do we think no fans how is it going to impact the game? I feel like I don't hear many people actually talk about them not playing with fans and how it's going to, I want to know your thoughts. How does it impact the game? Does it have a benefit, negative? Who's got a first thought there on that? Kyle does.
Hi. I was watching the Lakers match yesterday. Their run
Scrimmage?
through, I guess. Yeah, their scrimmage. Thank you. And honestly, it didn't affect me as like someone watching on the TV all that much. I never really noticed like crowd noise anyway. And judging by the players, it seemed like they were, some of them obviously like were just having the run as a practice. But even still, it kind of still felt like they were just as competitive. They were just as eager to play as they normally would. I didn't really see them struggling at all without like any sort of noise. Like it seemed like it was just a normal game for them to me. I could be very wrong, but at least that's my takeaway. I thought it was fine, and it's a good setup that they got going on right now. Yeah, so that's just my thoughts on it anyway. Someone else can take it away from here.
I think it's fine. I will say that it stunk for baseball because baseball is boring.
They've got the cardboard cutouts now.
Yeah.
I did see that.
Crazy.
I like that the NBA is trying to do their thing with the TVs, though, and add fan noises. Felt like a pickup game to me, though, and I kind of like that. It felt dirtier. I don't know if that makes sense, but it just felt kind of a pickup
grungy
game, like you and your boys getting a crew together and you just face the other guys in the neighborhood. Like, yeah, that's what it felt like kind of to me, and I enjoyed it. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, you're good. I think I kind of feel bad for like the Bucks and the Lakers because like if home court advantage, like, I mean, having that many people screaming and cheering for you, I'm sure just helps, and it will help with momentum and like just crushing things like comebacks, right? Like if you're just focused on the game, and this is all just like a theory, like this actually just might not matter at all, and the crowd noise just might be fine. And I've never played in a situation like that, but like, I mean, I feel like you hear about people talking all the time about how much they feed off of the energy of the crowd, and that's why home court advantage is such a big deal. But also, it's like, I'm not going to use that as an excuse if a team that would have had home court advantage lost, but like, I'm sure it will be used as an excuse by some people. But I think, I mean, I kind of feel bad for the high seeds, and even like, a team like the Jazz who has such a home court advantage, like maybe not having that, and the Nuggets even, and like earning a high playoff seed. It's like everything goes in Kawhi Leonard's favor. He can skip out every single game, and all of a sudden, no home court advantage. No, I'm just kidding around. I think it's fine, and I think they've done the best they can with the situation, really.
Yeah, I think most of the best players have also had experience playing with small crowds. I mean, a lot of the qualifying games for the Olympics aren't necessarily filled with people until you get towards the medal rounds, or if you've played March Madness, a lot of those early round games don't have frenzied screaming people. The summer league for rookies is hardly going to be 20,000 people packed into an arena, so you might be missing some of that noise, but the best players are going to be able to zone out anyway. I think only the people who really draw that extra intensity from the fans might have to try and generate it some other way, but I don't know that the best players are really motivated by that. I think that they draw their motivation from somewhere else, and that's what makes them great, not necessarily trying to please other people.
Yeah, I think it'll play out pretty similar. And like, I don't think a team, even if the finals go 7 games, I don't think the loser is going to be like, man, if we had home court advantage, it'd be game over, right? Like,
Do you think we're going to hear James Harden drop an F-bomb on somebody or no?
I hope.
I know they're worried about that.
All of them will.
Major League Baseball already had that happen last night.
They the NBA is going off I don't know what MLB is doing. I don't watch baseball, but the NBA is doing a time delay so they can censor swearing. But even now and then when you're just watching a game, you might hear something. The crowd just happened to be quiet, and that player happened to be too close to a mic that happened to be live, and you hear something. I'd love to hear. Give me like a censored package I can pay extra for, and I'd or an uncensored one, and I'd watch that. I'm excited too. They got 30 plus new angles that they're able to do now because they don't have a massive arena with the crowd, which will be interesting. And I did watch a little bit of some of the Heat scrimmage, and some of the angles were good, but I'm excited to watch a full game from start to finish and really see all these new angles and what we're really going to see with the team. I'm also just excited for sports.
Who do you
Me
think
too.
out there on the court drops the first bomb on another player that we hear? It's
Jared
I wanted
Russell.
to say LeBron, but I have a feeling it's going to be somebody.
No, it's gonna be Pat
who's-
Bev, right?
Patrick Beverly, yeah.
Well, because he's one of the first game. It's gonna be everyone
Greg
swears
Popovich.
like.
I mean, Jimmy
Oh, it
Butler
could
does
be.
that in practice, if we believe the
Yeah.
reports from the Timberwolves. So
Well, they need to
Yeah.
play better. You don't hear about that over in Miami. You got a work ethic down there, and that's why we're playing in the bubble.
Hey, hopefully Kevin Garnett buys the T-Wolves, right?
No.
bring back
I'd
the
love
Sonics.
Yes. Then Kyle can like another Seattle team.
I won't advocate Minnesota losing a team, but just bring back the Sonics. That should be something
I
everyone
think
can
we
get on
all
board
want
with.
that.
Yeah.
It's the dream.
So I've got some more questions for you. I want to rattle through, and I don't know how prepped you guys are for this, but rattle through. I'm going to give
Always.
you the awards, and just going to give me maybe a player or two, or kind of what your feelings are, and we'll go through kind of the 6 big awards. And we won't start at the top. We'll start from, who do you guys think was going to be the most improved player this year? One of the more tougher questions, I think. And anyone can go, or I can lead it off.
How about you lead it off, Nick?
I was
like
just trying to
Bam for
think.
that one.
Go
Bam.
ahead.
Okay.
My Bam?
Yeah,
Bam Adebayo? You're giving him most improved?
I think he should be in the conversation. Yeah.
I'll take it. That's why I hesitated. I didn't know if I was going to say it or not. Get yelled at for going with another Heat guy. But I like it. I love it. I mean, he was an all-star this year after just having a pretty solid first rookie year.
I think that Bam's a good choice, but there are also some of those younger guys, year 2 guys like Luka Doncic. I mean,
And Bam.
he was obviously incredible last year, but he's gotten so much better from last year. He's probably not in the running for that sort of award because that's the expectation, but I feel like his improvement is sort of eclipsing anyone else's at this point. He's basically a superstar already, so I would say one of those two would probably be where I would lean.
Yeah, I like the Luka take. I don't think he'll win it. I think he should win it because I don't think there's anyone who's taken, like, he was good. Obviously, he was great his rookie year, but now he's a superstar. Like you said, he was in the MVP running for kind of almost the first half of the year. I would like to give it to Luka, but I think Bam's a good choice as well, because it's like, whoever heard, really, if you weren't a Heat fan, like, who was really talking about Bam a year ago, right?
Me and shout out to
Only
Justin.
Heat fans. But also I think Brandon Ingram is in the running just because he did make an all-star game. And if they make the postseason or he plays really well, because I don't know, does this 8 game counts, right? For this voting, or so
think
if
so.
he plays really well,
Imagine.
I think the most improved player is a close enough race that I think Brandon Ingram makes it. But if the Pelicans kind of don't play really well, then I think he probably doesn't.
Are we sure it's not going to be Ben Simmons? He didn't hit threes, and now he hits a couple threes every now and then. I think that's grounds for big improvement there.
I've got breaking news for you guys, actually. As we're talking about this, an article just popped up on my monitor. Heat's Bam, Kendrick
saw
Nunn
this.
confirmed positive test, return to practice. I don't know if that affects our thinking.
They weren't in the scrimmage. They're back now, correct? Yeah. They're returning from practice after testing positive. So I think they're all cleared.
How does that work?
They're all right.
Well, I think they weren't in the
bubble
2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Oh,
they've been out for a while. Yeah. Kyle, who do you think? Most improved player?
Brandon Ingram was going to be my choice. I'm a fan of his, so it's mostly a lot of bias, but I do honestly think he's improved a lot since going over to the Pelicans. I thought, like, he just has slowly been progressing, but now with the change and kind of just being away from the LA lifestyle. Not that it was bad for him or anything, but I think it just helped going to somewhere different than LA. It's really helped step up his game and has helped everyone else around him. And with Zion added, like he's just been able to, I feel like has just been able to improve upon himself. So,
I can't believe
that's just my choice.
You would throw bias into this conversation. We haven't had any bias all podcast episode.
I'm the worst type
We've
of
had
fan.
no bias. Not a single person in here has been biased. Then you come along with your biased little
We all have
love
complete
affair there.
journalistic integrity. It's true.
No, yeah,
someone-
none of us are biased. Heaton six.
Someone who I think could have been pretty heavily in the most improved player conversation if the season didn't stop was actually Jason Tatum, because he was on such a tear that he was putting himself in like this really high category that if he kept it going through the rest of the year, it might have elevated him to people wanting to give him an award. But another reason I think Brandon Ingram is the candidate is because the media members vote on these awards and they love a good narrative, and the narrative of a player who was a high draft pick who's been decent and okay but never could do it, and then LeBron came in and ruined his development, and then he goes to New Orleans and is able to make an all-star game. I think that's a pretty compelling narrative, and I think Luka's narrative of he was great and he just got better doesn't hit as well, and Bam
Bam
in
was
the shadow of Jimmy Butler.
All right, the shadow of Jimmy Butler. We want to turn this into a Heat argument because I'm ready. I'm geared up. You see this? You see this jacket? Those in Spotify and Apple don't, but it's pretty cool.
So, any more?
What about Trae Young?
Way to alienate 3 listeners there, jerk.
Yes,
I don't
sir.
think Trae Young's in the running. They're not good enough.
I like Trae Young, but the Atlanta's terrible. I mean, you can say the same thing about Zach LaVine. He was really good for the Bulls, but
there's
the rest of the team sucks.
Yeah.
He's good enough that the Knicks and Nets want him, so you could take away from that whatever you want.
So like Julius Randle level. So any more thoughts on most improved player? Anyone have a guy they want to throw out?
No,
I'm
Bam.
surprised Nick didn't go with Patty Mills there, to be honest.
No, definitely not. So now let's go to 6-man, something that Patty Mills should be in the running for.
Alex
No, he shouldn't
Caruso.
Zach, why don't you take this one?
Yeah.
Looks like you're chomping at the bit.
No, I'm thinking, 6-man. Is Goran playing? Is Dragic playing the 6-man for the Heat?
That would be
I
my
know
choice.
You mentioned that he's been playing really well.
He has been playing as a 6-man, yeah.
And so, it feels like that's a good role for him. I'd probably lean towards him right now. I mean, there's a few others, like Lou Williams is obviously always in the running for that sort of award, but I'd lean towards Goran.
That's who I would have gone with as well, because there's no bias here,
bias.
Just straight facts. And
Only bias from me.
Goran has been playing really well. I think he's at least in the conversation. He might not be first, but I think he's in the conversation. Kyle, you're just sticking with Caruso there, huh?
Yeah, sure. I just don't know much about this category and which type of players kind of categorizes that. So I'll just go with Alex Caruso.
So,
why not?
Caleb, who do you think?
Oh, for 6th man, I don't know. I'm always gonna go Marcus Smart there, just because he's the best.
He's the worst Russell Westbrook. Sorry, I had to do it. Caleb doesn't like Russ that much.
Let's
I
dive
actually
into
think
that now.
I think Lou has a good chance. I also think actually Montrezl Harrell has a good chance because even though he's just been so awesome on offense and he kind of fits that role offensively for the Clippers, and I think the Clippers, Kawhi's not going to be in the MVP running, or they don't have a player that's going to be in the Defensive Player of the Year running as well. So I think the Clippers are everyone. And a lot of media members think they're the best team. So I think giving Lou or Harrell seems like a decent option for them to get the Clippers involved in the awards. So I would say Lou or Montrezl Harrell. I'd say Harrell just because Lou's won it before. And I'd like to see them kind of give it out to, a non-established person. Because if you're going to give it to the best 6-man every year, then Manu Ginobili should have 8 of them. Let's be honest. So
Does he
yeah, I
not
think
have
six
Ingram?
man. He was
played
like
long
one or
enough,
two.
We'll have to fact check that one.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's go to rookie of the year. Any thoughts?
Let's just keep the Heat train going. It's Kendrick Nunn, baby. You guys heard of this guy?
No.
Of course you have, because he's dominant. It should be
it
Kendrick
not?
Nunn. He's playing out of his mind.
It's Ja
He's playing out
Morant.
of his
If
mind.
That's what I
anyone
was gonna-
says anything but Ja Morant, no.
Oh, I know, but I'm throwing my non-biased out here. It's
Even
Gotta be Kendrick Nunn.
the dingus over here is agreeing with Zach. Like it's
Yeah,
John Morant, right?
yeah, probably. But
I mean,
Unless Zion-
Zion had played 20 more games, maybe, but
Yeah.
Unless
only 8 games
Zion,
left.
unless he's dropping 50 a game for the next 8 games, it's Ja Morant.
Yeah.
I think by like the Memphis Grizzlies, I think kind of collectively everyone thought they were a couple years away from even being like, around the 9th best team in the West. And so for them to have, because they're also a team that kind of got screwed by the break because they had a big lead and it looked like they were just going to keep pushing that lead because they were playing really well. I think Ja Morant's been amazing. I love Zion, but I would give it to Ja for sure.
Caleb,
What about
not
you,
in
Caleb?
agreement there?
No, yeah, you guys got this one covered. Got nothing to
Tyler
add.
Hero, Heat and 6.
All right. So now let's go to Coach of the Year, and we'll start it off with Caleb.
Well, first year, not saying it should be Pop, which feels weird, but it's you got to give the Raptors love, right? Nick Nurse, he's probably got to be the one for that. I don't even know who else you would even consider. Yeah, it's probably just got to be Nick Nurse.
Eric Spoelstra.
No, probably not Eric Spoelstra.
No, he's been completely ignored since he became a head coach. I'd probably agree. I mean, I agree with you, Caleb. It's probably Nick Nurse for the Raptors. Coach of the Year for me in the NBA is weird because I think there's such a drop-off from the actually elite good coaches and the coaches that rotate in and out pretty constantly, personally. Maybe it's just because I don't know. It's weird to me. But the fact that he gets Chris Paul, loses or not Chris Paul, excuse me. They lose Kawhi, and they're still competitive, I think is pretty good job coaching there. So
Yeah, I don't really think, especially how this year's kind of gone, like the Clippers, and even though the Lakers have been awesome, they don't have a better record than the Bucks. So I don't think, because like you think about like the new teams that have formed, so I don't think either of those teams have been good enough. I also don't think like the Rockets with their small ball, if they were a 1 seed, they would have been like, when you think about, there's no other narrative that comes close to losing a top 4 or 5 3-player in the NBA right now who just took you to a championship, and then you lose him and it doesn't even seem like there's a difference in your regular season record. So yeah, I think he's kind of the runaway. And now let's go to Kyle for Defensive Player of the Year.
I apologize. You guys are the NBA masters. I don't have really many stakes in this one. So
you are wearing
I don't
a
know.
hockey shirt.
LeBron, just someone go ahead and he likes defense, right? He plays basketball.
Alex, who do you think?
I mean, I think LeBron has been snubbed throughout his career for Defensive Player of the Year, but I think now the way he's played the last few years, he's not going to get it. But it's Giannis to me. It's Giannis. He's been dominant all year.
I do love Giannis. I'll say him. The guy's like a freak or something.
To me, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, because he's just the pictures of him when he first got in the league to now. Is that the same guy? He's so big now. It's Giannis. He's the next. He's the guy. So yeah, Caleb, Zach, Nick, why don't you talk?
I was going to say the same thing. Giannis has a real shot at being one of the rare people to win MVP and Defensive Player of the Year in the same season. So, at the very least, he's Defensive Player of the Year.
I like Rondé Hollis Jefferson in this spot, actually.
Who?
Big time. Actually, I think Giannis has a good chance to win it, but I actually think Anthony Davis has a really good chance to win it, especially if Giannis wins MVP. Because again, I think narrative's a big thing, and I think giving the three big teams something in these awards could be a thing that happens. Obviously, Anthony Davis has been amazing, and people always talked about how the Lakers' defense is going to be their biggest flaw, and they're the third-ranked defense in the NBA. They have a better-ranked defense than the Clippers right now, and for that to happen, obviously LeBron has not. He's played better on defense. Obviously, he's not a defensive player, but it's because of Anthony Davis being so dominant on the defensive end. And I think, the Bucks being the best defensive team was kind of expected, or them being that high. It was not expected for the Lakers. So I think Anthony Davis could get it there because I think, spoiler alert, I think Giannis is going to win MVP. I think unless like the same situation with Zion, LeBron would have to drop 50 points a game, every game and take them to the number 1 overall seed or whatever. And I think LeBron would have had a chance if the season didn't stop because Lakers had those two huge wins and LeBron been playing so good. But I think it's Giannis for sure.
Over the Bucks too. Yeah.
I think for MVP,
beat Bucks and Clippers in the same week.
Yeah.
MVP it's probably Giannis. Giannis won it last year too, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
MVP to me has been a weird, kind of like coach, but just MVP. I feel like the last few years it's been we have to give it to this guy. Like this time it's his turn to get it. I've felt that at least maybe over the last 5, 6, 7 years or something like that. Exactly.
James Harden deserved his MVP.
Russ. Well, hang on.
What?
Westbrook was the year before Harden, right?
Yeah.
That was the
and
year
Harden could have won it that year too.
That's the year that Westbrook had his crazy year, and the first year where he averaged the triple double. Correct? Am I correct on my math here? You guys concur?
Yeah.
Right.
I
Durant's
remember
the year before that,
when
right?
he won it, when Westbrook won it, the entire media was saying there's no way it cannot go to Westbrook because he's doing something that has pretty much never been done. This is insane. And then Westbrook did it the next year too, and he did it 2 years in a row. And the media narrative completely shifted from, he's doing the exact same thing. And the year before he was the clear cut because no one had done this. And then the
Harden
next year was
better the same year that Russ did that than he was in his MVP year. He was actually playing better basketball.
I'm just saying that's why I think the MVP award has kind of fallen off in the NBA a little bit for me anyway. Just because that year, how does it not? You can't paint that same narrative and then be like, oh, now it's his turn. That's just how I feel. LeBron's been snubbed for it a bunch of times within the last decade. It's going to go to Giannis because Giannis is the better narrative, is the better story, and he is well deserving of it. He's definitely deserving. Yeah. All these guys are deserving of it.
But I do think I think because of the big break, though, that there is a small chance that LeBron does have. He's obviously it's between LeBron and Giannis, and then it's a huge drop off. But because LeBron was playing so much, he was playing so good at the end, and there was this narrative of could he catch him? And then you have this big break, and you're kind of forgetting how dominant Giannis was at the beginning of the year. That if LeBron plays super well to start this, and maybe he has an outside shot, but I think it's probably Giannis because obviously he's been dominant. But I think the MVP is very narrative based. You could argue Harden should have 2 MVPs and Russ shouldn't have any. But also you could argue that LeBron should have 6 or 7 MVPs. But, obviously Kobe only has 1. So there's a lot of things with the MVP narrative. But I think Giannis is probably the most likely. And so the kind of the last main question that I have for you guys, and this can kind of just go into generally talking about our thoughts on different teams that we might have not really touched on. But just kind of who do we think are going to be the bubble teams that end up making it in? Do you guys think the Pelicans are going to make it in? Do you think the Wizards are going to make some noise in the postseason in the East? So just kind of what do you think, especially in the West bubble scene? And then just kind of overall thoughts on some of the last
The Wizards
teams.
make me so sad because I loved John Wall for so long, and I feel so bad for him for all of those injuries on the court and off the court. and I just don't see Beal needs to get out of there. I think that organization needs a rebuild. And it's
Whatever
time.
happened to the John Wall song, man? I've been wondering
Do
about
the
that.
John Wall.
How's it doing?
What a
Great
that sounds
song.
like fire. I mean, that's pure fire. But you just said the Wizards. That was the first thought that came into my head. I have felt bad. I don't think they're gonna make any noise. This few eight games is gonna be interesting to see how teams look, because I think there's gonna be the clear superior teams. There's the clear we're just happy to be part of the bubble teams.
You also got to wonder who's actually going to try for these 8 games before the playoffs. I mean, a lot of the seeding's pretty locked in for some of the teams. I mean, like Dallas has like a 10-game lead on the next seed, right? And they're not really in range to move up too much from there. So are they going to be really pushing for it, or are we really, going to expect Dallas to go full effort until the playoffs? I don't know. So I think Memphis is the team I'm just excited to watch, see if they can hold off New Orleans. That's really, I think, the battle to watch in the West is just those 2 teams with the exciting rookies.
Everybody's counting out those Trailblazers, man.
Yeah.
I think I'd be more
a couple
afraid of
fans who aren't.
Trailblazers than the Pelicans myself.
Pelicans look good in that first scrimmage without Zion, though. Didn't they blow whoever they played out? They just completely blew them out, didn't they, in the scrimmage? I think they did.
Well, weren't they playing like I don't remember who they played.
The Nets, yeah.
It might have been somebody pretty bad. You could be very correct there. I do want to say real quick, Zach, I think off your point, I think these guys have not enjoyed being in obviously they probably enjoy being with their families, especially when you're on the road so much with their job, but I think they are ticked, and I think they're itching to get playing, and I actually think all of the games are going to be pretty rough. It's either you have the talent or you don't, but I think people are going to try pretty hard. You might be right, but
I think it's also coaching rotations, like time on court. Do you expect LeBron to play 35 minutes a game? I don't.
Well, no.
Yeah, but it's also
20.
like another scary thing. And to play to Caleb's point, Portland, I think, is a scary team just because you have Damian Lillard, right? Like, who's just he hit that big game-winning shot right in Paul George's face. Yeah, so when you think about it, because a big thing I think is these guys getting back into playing shape, right? Like there's a difference between being in shape and being in playing shape, and they've been out of the game long enough where they're gonna have to play enough to be there. And are the Lakers probably gonna be fine because they're gonna be playing, unless they play like Portland. Like Portland could maybe take them to 5 games if they are just in that playoff atmosphere sooner. But let's be real, I don't think they're going to make too much noise against a team like that. But yeah, I think the West is interesting. I think the only real 3 team, I think it's between the Grizzlies, Trailblazers, and Pelicans. And I actually might be with Caleb the more you think about it. Like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum they're very good. They know their game. They've done it for so long. This break is only gonna help them, because they weren't playing that great to start the year. And obviously they get Nurkic back, who hopefully he can, play decent. Obviously that's a tall task to just come back.
They need him on defense really bad. That's like their one weakness. So
they've got skinny Carmelo now. Okay.
Yeah, so they're fine.
Yeah.
Obviously I can't not talk about them. The old Spurs. They're not really in contention. They'd have to probably win at least 5 of their 8 games to have
the
a
best
chance
coach
to play
in the bubble.
It's true. But they lost LaMarcus Aldridge. And obviously, honestly, the reason I'm excited to watch them play, and I think for a team like the Suns, for a team like the Kings, and for the Spurs I think you saw it in the scrimmage, they started a lot of the young players that I think a lot of Spurs fans have been calling for them to play more throughout the year. Teams like that, it's just kind of a chance to kind of see what you have, especially for the Spurs. Put them in this situation. If things go great, you somehow miraculously rattle off 6 games because you play against the Rockets and they're not trying hard because they just want to, there's no home court, so it doesn't matter who they play, right? You rattle off a few wins, you happen to make it in the playoffs, you get swept by the Lakers. That's kind of, I think, the reality for these teams, but it's going to be a fun little competition leading up to the big battles that we're going to see in the West. But just kind of seeing what you have, like with Devin Booker, let's see how he plays, because guess what? I want to see something from him. He's talked a big game that he's gonna lift this Suns team to the postseason. He's done with losing, and I've always, obviously they haven't given him great talent, but like here's a
Doesn't he say
playoff
that every
atmosphere.
year?
At least drop me some good stats, play good, and keep some games close. So, and same with like De'Aaron Fox, some Spurs players, and then the Magic, seeing what Aaron Gordon does and things like that.
We got to remember too, last year was the first year Bron doesn't make the playoffs in 7 years, or to the finals even. Now this guy
the
is
first time he had made the finals in 9 years, right?
Yeah, so
He
going
made it 8
in
straight.
So going into this season, we already had arrested Bron because he got more time off, and then you give him COVID. Everybody's saying he's too old. Kawhi, Giannis, you might get a pretty angry LeBron running around there.
I think the funniest thing, the one big knockback to all this load management that Kawhi's been doing, and he doesn't play, and he says, I don't care about MVP awards. I'm not going to go out and win at least one MVP. No great player of all time. All of them have at least one. He doesn't have it. And he says, well, I'm just going to win enough where it's not going to matter. Well, all of a sudden, everyone, your big break doesn't matter. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think him and LeBron are going to have a pretty good battle. They always have. And it's going to be the first time that we see Kawhi totally on LeBron's a similar type of level. When they battled for 2013, 2014, Kawhi was not the Kawhi we've seen since like 2017. Barring the year he missed. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, for the teams that aren't going to make it, I think it's a good opportunity just to kind of see what they have in their young talent. And then I think it's just going to, I'm curious to see like what you said with the Mavericks. Like, I don't know what Luka's going to do. I hope he comes out blazing and because they could upset a team. Their offense is so good that if they get hot for 4 out of 7 games, there's not a lot of teams that I can beat them in the NBA if they're on, but their defense probably isn't good enough to really hold them. But any kind of last thoughts from anybody about the bubble, teams you're excited to watch? Or
just excited to have basketball back and watch sports that aren't baseball.
Fair enough.
And go Heat in 5. We amended
against
Heat
2
5. Against the league. We're coming, baby.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking advantage of sports coming back. Like, I haven't been watching enough basketball, and it definitely shows. So I can't wait for the sport to come back and just be able to watch a bit more and just soak it all in and enjoy it. It's something entertaining to watch, and that way it'll just be great to keep learning more about the game right now.
It's going to be more accessible,
I'm
too. It's all on ESPN and Fox Sport. Like, it's going to be on big major networks. Obviously, ESPN is a little different compared to Fox, ABC, but I think it's going to be more accessible. People are going to be watching.
I feel like Kyle's about to go through his training arc where he's actually going to watch so much basketball, and then he's going to be like I think a few of us when we were younger, where you get super into basketball and you show up and you talk to I talked to my dad who watched Kareem Abdul-Jabbar play, and I'm like, actually, like, his statistics were this. Like, I don't know how you didn't know that he won this game back in the day.
You still
That's
do
going to be Kyle in a few weeks.
I'm ready.
Kyle's gonna be like, "Did you?"
LeBron is okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Kyle's gonna come up and be like, "Do you guys know LeBron played for the Heat? What the heck?"
That was just so long ago.
Caleb and Zach, what are you thinking? Last thoughts about NBA, the bubble?
I mean, I'm excited as well, and I'm really just curious to see what the matchups are. We're going to get some pretty intriguing ones. I hope we get Lakers-Clippers for the finals and not like a divisional round. I want that to be for all the marbles. So it'll be interesting to see how it breaks down. It really I think it'd be almost a disservice to see like the Clippers or the Lakers versus the Rockets to go to the championship. Because I think we deserve this after so long. We deserve this monumental setup where we got these titans going together. We had the sort of like last year's championship was fun because it was new. Finally, a new team winning besides LeBron or the Warriors. But
it's always fun when Brown wins.
I think this year, you're going to have this Giannis. You have Kawhi. You have Anthony Davis, LeBron.
Bam.
if you want to put Jimmy on their level, go for it.
Tyler Hero.
You know,
Done.
it's just going to be really cool to see sort of the next era of great basketball matchups and potential dynasties coming together.
Caleb.
This might be a bad time to admit this, but I've actually never watched an NBA basketball game.
Wow.
All you need to know is Heat in 5.
All you need to know is Paul Pierce is the GOAT.
All I know is Paul Pierce is the GOAT. That's what I saw in Game of Zones.
That's what Paul Pierce told me.
Yeah. But so I think this was it for episode 2 of the Get Back Guys podcast. Thanks, Zach and Caleb, for joining us. And of course, let's hope that the Spurs go 8-0 in their games and make it to the playoffs, and that the Heat do something. Who cares about them? We just want the Spurs to do good. Am I right? So yeah, thank you guys for joining us for episode 2. Let us know your NBA takes, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Audio Jungle.